Greetings once again, my friends, and welcome back to Drak Reviews, where we're taking on, once again, another more recent title that came out in November as we take on Need for Speed Payback. Now, people might notice that this is a little out of my wheelhouse. I don't normally talk about games like these, but what people actually don't know is I actually used to play a lot of Need for Speed back in the PS2 days, and I actually enjoyed it quite a bit, especially the two Underground games. I eventually went on to play Need for Speed Carbon, and I think the last one that I actually played was the 360, or it was the PS2 version, but it was the Need for Speed Most Wanted that came out around the time the 360 did. So I actually did like the Need for Speed series. It was kind of a weird fascination for me. I like racing games, and this was looking to give me that. The difference being is that with Underground came a bunch of other new options like drifting and all that. And while I did find a lot of that enjoyable and the customizing enjoyable in those games, after Most Wanted, I kind of fell off. I didn't necessarily want to play additional games in the series until I saw the E3 2017 trailer for Payback. It at least looked like it was going to be a fun Need for Speed game. I didn't care about the emphasis on the mystery car or anything like that, but I at least was willing to give this game a go and see if it was going to be worth my time, especially since this is, I think they now call themselves Team Ghost, so it's basically a merging of the Need for Speed guys and the Burnout guys, and I really enjoyed the Burnout series too. So without that, I at least wanted to explain why this game made the cut and why I actually did a review for it. Let's get into it. Starting with the story. The story's pretty simple as Need for Speed stories go. You are Tyler Morgan and his crew as they are looking to basically pull a stunt on a local gambler named Marcus Weir and take his prized new high-tech car and use it for themselves. If people want me to say the name, you're not going to get it because I will murder that. I think it's like called the Koenigsegger. I'm car guys. I appreciate you way too much to actually murder that name. So if I did, I'm sorry. But yeah, they're in hot pursuit of this, and they actually have a deal with a girl by the name of Lena Navarro to take the car and to scrap it, learn everything they know, and then maybe sell it for the house. And the house is evil because, of course, they are. While Tyler is in the middle of trying to collect this car, he is then double-crossed by Lena Navarro and is forced to make a deal with Marcus Weir, which involves disbanding his team for some weird reason. And then 6 months later, getting them back together? Again, I know that they were doing a bunch of illegal stuff, but it's not really that well explained. So you continue to play as Tyler, but now he's after payback. He wants to get back at Lena Navarro, who's working with the house and wants to take down said house. And yeah, you kind of get the picture of the plot here. And also he does get back together with his crew and they wreak havoc upon Lena Navarro. Story-wise, I'm going to say I did take points off because while that might be entertaining for somebody who plays these car games consistently or loves the Fast and the Furious movies, because it's kind of, I would say, like one of the earlier plots of a Fast and the Furious film, it didn't hold my interest. In fact, I laughed at it for the most part. I found the characters kind of generic and was able to laugh those off, but that's not why I came. Like, I'm not coming to a Need for Speed game for the story. I'm coming for the cars. I'm coming for the racing. So I mean, I probably would have laughed off the story either way, but I did take points off because it is seeming fairly generic for a car-based movie/game. Moving on into the visuals, like with other EA games, this is where I really don't have too many complaints. It looks polished, it looks nice and shiny and new, but usually that's not the problem. It's what's under the hood that counts. Pardon the car pun. So I actually gave it full marks. I didn't really have any glitches or anything like that happen when playing this game. I will say that the human models needed some serious work, but they were passable. Moving on into the gameplay, this is where I actually had a little bit of an issue. Now, compared to other Need for Speed games, I did find this about as entertaining. My problem is that as much as I enjoyed the Underground games, and for the most part because of the racing and because of the customization, the one part I didn't like in those games was drag and drift. And I wanted those eliminated, or at least to be more of a side quest kind of thing. I know I'm asking a lot, but I'm not the big car guy. So while drag returns, and in my opinion, it works a lot better than drag did in the Underground days, this drift here is still. I'm just not a drifter, guys, and I don't like how to do it, and I don't like having missions completely devoted to it. So I'll admit I did take points off there. Also, there were a couple of points where I felt like the tutorial arrows and everything, and the gates and everything like that were unnecessary. I know that in a lot of cases with a racing game, you're not necessarily focused on the road, but there were a couple of points where I could be focused and I didn't need those, and I looked for ways to be able to turn them off and couldn't. And it may be just because I was in I experimented with both easy and normal mode, and I still got those arrows. So I just felt like they kind of were overly unnecessary after a while and a little bit more annoying than anything else. It's almost like the game is telling you you're too stupid to be able to read on your map where you're supposed to go. There were also a couple of gameplay issues when it came to the cars. I felt like the braking, it was kind of unnecessary to have two brake buttons. That kind of bugged me. I know that one of them is the handbrake and is a little bit more for drifting, and then you also have the full, or one of them is the brake, and then the other one is the handbrake, where you get a little bit more of a more solid stop. But yeah, it's I took marks off on gameplay, but I didn't take too much off because for the most part, it's still pretty entertaining, but that's probably not what a lot of people want me to talk about, so I will quickly broach this subject. Yes, this is an EA game, and therefore there were microtransactions going to be attached into this game. But around the time that this game came out, the Battlefront controversy happened, and thus Need for Speed Payback's microtransactions were taken out. Have they come back into the game? I wouldn't be able to tell you. The main reason being, a lot of the customizing I didn't actually experiment too much with. I did enjoy what I was able to play with, but I never got to a point where I felt like there should have been a microtransaction wall there. I think that they just kind of reworked a lot of that stuff. And even then, if you're looking for me to talk about microtransactions, see my viewpoint that I've been saying throughout the whole Battlefront controversy. It shouldn't have been in here. And even though Need for Speed probably would have made more sense than Battlefront, I would still not want it to be something, because I believe it was the performance cards, and instead it should have been like customizable appearances, not stuff that was essential to your car's performance. So there you go. That's my viewpoint on the matter. I didn't really experiment with it. I wouldn't have paid even if I had been given the option. And I don't like the fact that it was tied to the cars instead of to custom upgrades for your car's appearance. Moving on into the audio, I did take points off on this one too, and it's simply because I can't believe I've said this so much in 2017, and it still bears repeating. There have been times where voice actors I just don't think are giving the best performance. They're giving kind of generic performances, and I know some people get mad at that, and I don't know necessarily a solution to it, but yeah, Tyler, Mac, Jen, even Marcus, they all sounded very generic, and it was very difficult to say any of them had a very standout performance. Obviously, they didn't get any awards for it. So, I mean, it was still good audio quality, but the performances weren't as great as some people were led to believe. And that's really all I got to say. I did take points off on that one. And then finally, replay value and presentation. So replay value is obviously there, as it is with previous Need for Speed games. You can go and collect various other cars, go buy them, just try them out, go for joyrides in them. That's not necessarily the problem. In fact, there's an additional replay value element, which is derelicts. So when you get past a major quest line on your way, you will get a map that is very vague, and I did like the fact that it was vague, on derelict models or like older models of cars that you could then repurpose. I like that idea. I thought that was a really cool idea for replay value, especially for those who like to customize cars and maybe do some of the funky stuff that you actually do see in this, like the dune buggy that actually looks like a Volkswagen Bug, like an old school Herbie kind of bug. So replay value is definitely there for Need for Speed. Presentation, does it come together to form a good product? For the moment, I can say yes. It does come together. Is it going to amaze and astound you story-wise or anything like that? No, not really. But most of the people who are going to play this are playing it for the cars anyway. So it's not necessarily going to be that big of an issue. And that's why I have no problem giving Need for Speed Payback a final score of 6 out of 10. It is slightly above average. It is generic, and I don't really know what else to say aside from that. It's slightly above average, and I think car fans will get what they want out of it. But from what I understand, a lot of my friends that do the car games are either because they thought Need for Speed wasn't coming back, they'd since moved on to games like Gran Turismo, The Crew, and others. So there you go, 6 out of 10. And as far as should you get it or what it's worth, currently, Need for Speed Payback is on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Windows, because Xbox One and Windows are connected. You can't get this for Nintendo Switch or any other platform, and it is currently selling for $59.99. And I have a feeling for Windows, if you want it, you have to go through EA's service to purchase it, as well as Battlefront. $59.99, I've got to say, is it worth it? No. This game is not worth $59.99. I paid for it, obviously, and kind of regret it. But for those who are car fans or car porn, car enthusiasts, whatever you want to call it, it's not even worth it to you guys. I would actually say wait until it's probably got a good $10 or $20 price drop. And trust me, with EA having problems, that's probably going to happen somewhere down the line. In the meantime, though, there's plenty of other car games for you to be able to enjoy. And like I said, a lot of my friends have already moved over to those games because they didn't think Need for Speed was coming back. As to new fans looking to try this out, if you're that interested in it, then maybe $59.99. If you're willing to fork out that kind of cash, it's worth it. I still would tell you wait until a $10 or $20 price drop, but for the most part, I really don't see this being an entertaining experience for you guys, and might even want to point you in the direction of Gran Turismo or The Crew if you're looking for that car experience. And that's going to go ahead and do it for this review. So I apologize to the car guys if you were expecting a more positive one. It's not that I don't think this is a bad game. I just don't think it's a great game either. And that's going to go ahead and do it. So thank you guys so much for watching. And of course, I'll be back in time for the next review.